Double check. So whilst we're waiting for a few more people to come, I want to tell you a few things. First of all, there is a link in the text of this webinar to the survey that we're doing about alcohol-free drinks. I'd really like you to fill it in because the data is going to be really important to us. We're meeting some parliamentarians this week about the future of labelling, and I really want to get a good sense from Club Soda members about your thoughts and feelings. Also, we've got the next two lunches coming up is the March lunch in London, slightly different to normal. This is a sort of a fine dining alcohol-free restaurant that's just opened up in London. So slightly higher than our normal price point, but I've tried to give everyone a good amount of notice about it because I think it's going to be a really lovely event. We've got a private room for it and they've got an amazing range of alcohol-free drinks. So I'm hoping that some of you will consider it a treat or a reward for having got to a milestone. Don't forget our events are all really friendly and I'll happily come and meet any of you beforehand if you are stuck or don't want to meet somebody. Either myself or Janet will do that. And on the same day, we've got an event in Edinburgh at Hammond's, which is an amazing venue. It has basically the whole of the alcohol-free shops, drinks in it. It's fantastic. And so you'll be able to try absolutely everything and knock yourselves out. And again, Andriana and Liz and Jackie are organising that one and they can meet you if you want. And just to let you know that this is a pay what you want platform at the moment. So if you like the webinar or have found the whole group really useful, there's a lot of volunteer admin's time and our time that goes into keeping it a nice, safe place. So if you want to donate, you can do that there. And then just finally, if anyone's finding things difficult right now, then we've got our next face-to-face workshop this coming Saturday on the 2nd of March. And you will get me and UC to guide you through the first 4 weeks of going alcohol-free. So there's a few of you here now. So I'm going to come back to the webinar. And our webinar's today on how to stop feeling like you're missing out. And I picked up on this one because we've now got to some people having done their first month alcohol-free, some people hitting some other milestones. But what I've always known and been really clear about is that often we don't change our drinking habits because we're really frightened that suddenly we won't be a social person like we were, that we'd have to give up our social life because so much of everything we do socially involves alcohol. And for most people, just even the tiniest thought that might happen means they're like the thought's tiny, but the barrier's massive to us changing our habits. And so I'm really aware that it's a real fear that people have, even though we might actually only go out once or twice a month, which might involve drinking, and the rest of the time we drink at home. But it's still that fear of missing out on a big social event, something really important, that puts us off and makes us feel like we can't change or don't want to change. I'm just doing another double check here that you can actually all hear me. Some comments have come up. Because oh look, I can hear me. Sorry everyone. Thought I'd turn that off. Yeah, you're all there. So okay. So how can we address this? Well, first of all, the reality is that if you're looking to change your drinking, there's a key word in there, right, that's really important, and that word is change. You can't change something about yourself without change happening, you know? Things will be different. Something's going to have to give. And so you are already on the process of thinking about change. And so that things can't stay the same. They won't stay the same. So you have to be ready for that and be prepared for that. And that's okay. That's part of the journey, part of the joy and part of the hard work of changing your drinking. Some changes may be temporary, some longer term, but all of this process is about change. And if you wanted things to stay the same, you wouldn't even be looking to change your drinking. You wouldn't even be here. If you're a little unsure of what change you're trying to achieve or what you think change might do for you, then we're going to put a link to in the blog of this, but also in the files section of the Club Soda Together group, there's something called the decision balance sheet. I find that a really useful tool for exploring what it would be like if things stayed the same. What are the benefits and what are the drawbacks of things staying the same? And what are the benefits and what are the drawbacks of change? Because without a doubt, there are some things that you may enjoy about drinking, or there are some experiences you've enjoyed having with drinking, or there may be some great times back in your 20s that you had with drinking, or there may be some particular social occasions that have drink at them that you think are really important to you. It's okay to write down that losing that or feeling that will be different will be a drawback, a negative aspect of changing your drinking. But it allows you to then put all of the positives of changing your drinking alongside it, and begin to think about all the things that are important to you, why you're doing this. And like I said, you wouldn't be here if you didn't want to change something, if it wasn't for the fact that the hangovers were getting too much, if it wasn't for the fact that you probably embarrassed yourself at some of those social occasions, or you were fast asleep in the corner dribbling by 10:30, or you were just feeling like you weren't in control. Whole heap of things that have drawn you to want to look at change, but it's really important to put them in balance and be able to see what the impact of that change will be, why you're doing this, what are the good things you might be missing. And it's good to look at those good things you might be missing, because it allows you to begin to think about what you might replace them with, or what are the key elements of that. And I'll come back onto that later. But instead of fearing change, I want you to see this as a necessary part of your journey. You know, if it was just as easy as saying, that's it, I'm stopping drinking now, and then you did nothing else, you're likely to just fall at the first hurdle because you haven't really thought through why you're doing something and what the changes that will be coming along might be. You haven't had a chance to design this new future you. And I want you to see designing the future you, the future social you, as a key part of your behaviour change and change process, because it does need some effort. And like I say, you know, of course it needs effort, because if it was that easy, everyone would be doing it. And some of you may now have also recognised that, because now that you've gone past dry January and you're now going into either a moderation or quit journey through into February, people are beginning to ask you why you're doing it and how you've done it and how you managed it. And that curiosity isn't just because they think it's interesting. It's because they want to know what the secret ingredient is for themselves, all right? There's a little bit of jealousy coming through here and there. So it's really important that you keep hold of that. So how can you begin to look at how you deal with missing out? And missing out is really a very particular thing. If you've been used to going out every Friday night and having a skinful, and that's what you've done as part of your social life for the last 5-10 years, then by not going, by not having a skinful, you will automatically feel like you're missing out. It doesn't matter how in your head you'll know that really you're not, because your hangover was so terrible, you actually ruined the whole of your weekend. You will still feel there's a sense of missing out if you see social media posts from other people, and this probably makes things 20 times worse than it was for people 10 years ago, that you'll be able to see other people out and about. You'll get this, what I call fear of missing out, FOMO, that you even before you've even thought about what you might do this Friday night, you'll have this sense of loss, of not being part of the crowd. It's really normal, and it is something you will have to learn to experience, but also learn to rejig in your mind, to rewire your mind to think about what missing out really means. So first of all, it's worth looking at the myths that surround what missing out is. There's some myths that we need to explode that are holding you back. You will need to shed some long-held beliefs and truths about what you think alcohol does for you. And we do lots of amazing, magical, wishful thinking about alcohol. You know, some of you would have got to a few weeks without drinking and you'll begin to think, oh, well, it wasn't that bad. I mean, think of all those crazy nights I had that I wouldn't have had without it. And you begin to imbue alcohol with mythical properties that really it doesn't have. Those 1 or 2 occasions may well be dwarfed in reality by the 50, 60 occasions where you felt like a complete and utter idiot, where you embarrassed yourself, where you felt regret. Also, culturally, we are taught that alcohol and nights out with alcohol are what being social is. This is the be-all and end-all. A night on the beers, a night out clubbing with champagne, even just the marketing around alcohol that says, oh, is this a special night? Then have something fizzy. You know, it's actually really strongly hardwired into our cultural identity and therefore our personal identity and our whole, there's this whole set of myths around alcohol. But where's the rule that says, you know, going out and being social has to be about getting completely hammered and falling over? Where is the reality that says, you know, meeting people is a really lovely thing to do. Meeting new people, spending time with friends is absolutely a glorious thing to do. So why do we do it all under with so much alcohol? What's so awful about our friends and people that we meet that we need to be half cut in order to enjoy the night? And did we really enjoy the night anyway? Because you might not remember anything past 8:30. So do you just have that sense that it was a great evening without really knowing what the detail was? And are you really secretly just hoping that you didn't embarrass yourself too much? So you need to shed some of those myths about what you consider being part of something and what a good night out is, to begin to see on balance the decision you made and where it fits into the whole future you. And I really want you to really shed some of those myths. You know, do you have to be drunk to meet new people? Do you have to be drunk to have a good time? Do you actually have to drink as much as everyone else in a social situation to be having a good time as everyone else? Do you have to stay to the bitter end and drink in order to stay to the bitter end? Do you have to drink to be somewhere where you're not enjoying yourself? I mean, this is a really weird thing. A lot of people tell me they drink in order to be somewhere because they're not really enjoying it that much. Wow, so you're going to ruin your whole Saturday as well just because you're staying somewhere where actually you don't want to be? Why not go home? That's what you do when you're not enjoying being somewhere or it's not quite the night you expected. So begin to really unpack that and start to think about the social events you go to, the social events you're invited to in the future. I remember feeling really saddened by a guy who said to me, the thing is, you know, I get what you're doing at Club Soda, but my daughter's getting married in the summer and I just think it would ruin the whole day for us not to be able to open that bottle of champagne. And I thought, really? Isn't the fact that your daughter getting married the most exciting part of the day, not the champagne? Does it really matter what's in the glass that you're drinking? Is the whole occasion made by how expensive a bottle you've managed to bring over from France? Of course it isn't. You're being a dick. There's loads of people at that wedding who aren't drinking. You just haven't realised it. And you've created some myth around the champagne that means that you don't think it can be an enjoyable day without it. And actually, I feel quite sad for you, mate. And more importantly, I feel sad for the guests that are coming that aren't drinking because you haven't thought about them at all. You're more worried that someone's going to take your champagne away. Outrageous. So begin to think about those events that you hold dear, those special occasions, and think about what is the real point of an event. What is the real point of a wedding? It's somebody getting married. It's to celebrate their day, not to cause a fight and be sick over the function room. It's not to drink as much alcohol as you possibly can at their expense. In fact, that sounds really awful, to be honest. It's about celebrating somebody's love and spending time with friends and family, where you can talk to people that you may not have spoken to for ages, not ignore them because you're slightly too drunk in the corner and can't manage a full conversation. You know, is Friday night only about getting drunk when you ruin the whole of your weekend? So begin to think about those occasions. Begin to really use logic to scotch all those myths. And begin to think about what's important to you about socialising on each of those occasions. So when I go out for a drink with someone now, it's because I want to go out with that person for a drink and talk to them and find out how things are going and maybe even talk a bit about myself and tell people what I'm doing because quite frankly, Lucy's bored of hearing from me now. And so I get a chance to talk about all sorts of things that are important to me that some other people that are closer to me and see me more often are probably bored of hearing. We might get to see something or do something or eat something or feel something that we haven't for a long time. We might get ideas, we might be energized, but that's the important part of that meeting up. It's not how much you drink. And again, there might be all sorts of different events in your social calendar that are really important. For me, going to the theatre was really important after I stopped being an elected member and spending all of my evenings in Islington Town Hall. And I began to get very disappointed with myself when I was drinking, because I would be half cut by the second half and not really engage with the play. So there's me spending, 15, 20, 25 quid on a theatre ticket and not actually being present and not actually getting the most from it. So for me, remembering the second half of a production, remembering why I'm there, became a really important thing for me. So whatever your social landscape is now, begin to think about it and reframe it and think about what's important about that event, because that will begin to allow you to think about how you might be able to achieve that without the alcohol. And so it might be that you need to move your socialising to a different space. It might mean that you need to do something different with people. It might be that you connect with people in different ways, like during the daytime, at the weekend, because you can do that now. You're not hungover. Suddenly your Saturdays are free and you can go for brunch. You can go for lunch, you can go to a gallery, you can go for a walk, you can go for a run with someone, you can do a spa day with them, you can go out cycling, you can suggest a one-day adult education course, you can suggest a one-day kayaking course. We were doing that on Saturday, talking about that. So suddenly you can do things socially with people that you want to, because the whole point of spending time with them is to find out more about what's going on with them and to be energised by their companionship and friendship, not to get half cut, right? So begin to think those things up and begin to be a bit more inventive. You will not miss out if you're putting some effort in. And like I say, this is all about effort, because change takes effort. And the more energy you put in, the more successful you're going to be at change. You can also, number 2 in my top tips on this is to remember this is about you. Okay, if you were enjoying everything about your life as a drinker to date, you wouldn't even be trying to do this. So you're allowed to be a little bit selfish on this, and remember that this is about you and your change, and begin to make some changes around what you do socially. To accommodate that, and don't feel guilty about it. My God, you've been feeling enough guilt as it is, people. Don't feel guilty about doing things that protect your sobriety, particularly in the early stages. And that's whether you're moderating or going alcohol free, because your alcohol free days when you're moderating are going to be really important to you. And those days where you're going to really stop at 2 drinks or whatever are going to be really important. They will take effort. So don't feel guilt that you're changing and mixing things up a bit. Don't feel guilty to ask your friends to do something slightly different to support you. Like I say, not everything is forever. You may find that after a few months, some social situations get a lot easier to be in, and that's fine. And you'll be able to go along to that party without feeling FOMO and not avoid it and have FOMO, because you can go to it and then leave when you want to. But don't underestimate how much you need to protect your goal, and don't underestimate how much you need to organise that to make sure that you protect your goal, and don't feel guilty for asking people to do something different for you. This is about you, and you're allowed to be selfish about it, right? Because 6 months down the line, when you're feeling stronger and more resilient, it will be a different picture. Okay? 3 is to begin to design the new social you. Don't leave anything to chance in this changing your drinking journey, right, guys? Don't leave the evening out to chance. Make sure you plan it and everything, but also begin to think about the longer term. Who are you as a social person? I've always been really struck. This is one of the most important things for me, actually, is that I always think I'm a people person, which actually I am, because I'm an extrovert. An extrovert doesn't mean I talk a lot, which obviously you all know, because I'm actually quite demure and quite quiet. No, really, I am. But being an extrovert means that I get my energy from other people. You see, he's a bit more of an introvert. He needs time on his own to regenerate and restore. I need to spend time with people to gain energy. So basically, I feel like one of those science fiction characters that's sucking all of your energy. But actually, that's really important to know, because in order for me to design the new social me, I realised it wasn't about being drunk. It was about spending time with people. And actually, the more quality time I spent with people, where I was able to listen to them and to be able to respond to them and be able to talk full sentences, was actually really important. I came out more energised than if I had drank a whole bottle of wine from an hour-long conversation with someone I really cared about and enjoyed spending time with. Now, the interesting thing about that is no longer did an evening out mean that it was 5 hours getting legless. It now could be an hour and a half, 2 hours, sharing a drink and then going home and being able to get to bed at a reasonable time. So my energy, like, it was amazing, because not only was I energized by the time I was spending with the person I cared about, but I was also energized by getting enough sleep and rest. And so I realised that for a long time I began to think that I wasn't a people person, because I was always so tired and hungover. And although I didn't drink every day, their hangovers were lasting days and days and days and just rolling into each other. So I was perpetually tired, unable to hold a conversation, not wanting to look anybody in the eye because I was feeling guilty and embarrassed. And so I'd just drink more and more and more in order to feel energised in the conversation, but still not getting anything out of it. It was this really horrible, self-perpetuating load of old bollocks, basically. And I got myself into a real pickle. I really began to think I wasn't a nice person. I couldn't listen to people. I wasn't attentive. I wasn't energized by spending time with people. And now I realize that that's all because I was just tired and hungover all the time and didn't have the energy to be the person I wanted to be, and didn't have the energy to gain the energy from the people that I was spending time with, which I need as an extrovert. So, you know, see how it works? I needed to design a social life that was right for me. So my social life now involves meeting people for breakfast, meeting people for lunch, meeting people after work for a couple of hours, and then maybe going to the cinema myself or with somebody else. I can fit 2-3 social engagements into an evening, and that's fine. I can spend a little bit more time on Skype with people, because that was even harder when you're hungover, because you're sat in a comfy chair and thinking that all you want to do is crawl up. So I connect a lot more with friends who live abroad and can do those sort of things. I can get up early and go to an art gallery like I did this morning, in and out by 11:30, really lovely exhibition, back home to do some other things. So I began to rethink my social life in terms of what will bring me the most energy, what will make this time full time rather than just surface time, what will make this deep connection so that I can gain as most from this time that I'm spending with a person, rather than lots and lots of shallow conversations based on me just getting through the day. God, so much getting through the day, and see if I can just get through this evening conversation, and I'd have more wine to get me through it, and then I'd feel terrible the next day, and I'd go, well, if I can just get through today. God, what a way to live. Really, really terrible. So begin to think, be excited about the future you. What is it that the new social you is? Well, the new social you might leave a bit earlier, but the new social you might also then meet someone for breakfast the next day, or meet someone for a run. Begin to visualize the you that's coming, the you that you're working towards, and write it down. Really, really important. What energizes you? And, you may try some things that you don't particularly like in the end, but that's okay. You tried them. You don't want to do them again. Maybe, the paper folding course on a Saturday morning isn't for you, but you'll find other things. It's a really important part of your journey to not only focus on the act of not drinking, but to focus on the act of being social without drinking, and begin to feel a new sense of you. And that's important because actually, you have more time. You won't believe that you have more time on the face of it, but you really do, because once you take drinking and thinking about drinking out the equation, and all of those things that you did in order to justify your drinking. So like I said, I used to think I'm going out tonight, so I would never get home before 11:30, because a night out was a session. It was an excuse to drink loads more, and often I would then also go home and drink some more before I then fell asleep in front of the telly. So at 2 a.m. I'd be falling asleep. So actually, when you decide to go home, if you meet someone at work at 6:30, after work at 6:30, and then you're home by 8:30, you have loads more time. If you're not watching any old shit telly to justify drinking wine, you have more time. If you're not spending Saturday morning with a hangover, you have more time. You will find that you have massive amount of time and energy to suddenly release. And so actually, you need to be more social. You need to get out there and do loads of stuff. I think, and we find it difficult just to sit in a room alone. I think it's a very human thing that we find that we have to always be doing something. And there's another webinar that I did that you might want to look at called The Difference Between Being Alone and Lonely. I've learnt since giving up drinking that whenever I thought I was lonely, it's just that I'd never been used to being alone without a drink in my hand that I felt I needed for company. What sort of bloody company is that? What a load of old rubbish. So I've learned the art. Well, I'm learning the art. I wouldn't say I've learned the art. I think I live with a master of the art of being alone, so I'm definitely nowhere near. But I'm learning to be in my own company and read and do things that nurture me and have nurturing time when I'm alone. But I also now use a lot of that time to be social in very different ways. And it's a lot easier when you've got some energy to do that. So begin to recognise that you've got time to fill, and you won't be able to fill that with people all of the time. So start to think about the things you would do with some of that extra time, and make it quality time. Make it, think not an hour scrolling through Facebook and Twitter. It's not quality time. That's empty time. It's I'm bored, so let's see what everyone else is doing, so I feel less bored. But start to think about hobbies that you thought you would do, or what were those great things that you thought you would be doing as you're growing up as a teenager, and begin to factor those into your life. It's not unreasonable to begin to want to do more and have the energy to do more. Remember that some changes may be temporary, but I will tell you that socialising does get easier. So if we talk about that fear of missing out, so it may be that for now you're avoiding parties, and occasionally you will feel the fear of missing out and you will have this pang, and you need to deal with that pang in the here and now and go, right, hang on a minute, am I really missing out? Is the grass really greener? Is this party going to be so amazing that I will really be missing out? What's really going to be happening? Will everyone be drunk by 9:30? Will it get a bit boring after that? Will people put me under pressure to drink? Will that make me feel uncomfortable? Would it be easier to avoid this situation for now? Maybe I won't look at their posts on social media tomorrow, and I'll do something to occupy myself tomorrow morning so I can feel like, yeah, you know what? It was worth not going to that party because I've got up and done a bike ride this morning. So begin to recognise that you're allowed to feel the fear of missing out, but make sure that you're replacing it with some logic. Remember that this is only temporary, but really by the time you've got out there and everyone else is drunk on their second drink, it won't be so much fun anymore. It's okay to say no to things and plan something nice for yourself to do that's an alternative instead. Be that going to the cinema, the theatre, going out stargazing, watching a really nice box set, whatever it is that will do. Create a new sense of joy so that you feel you've got something to look forward to. And remember, this can be temporary, because being social does get easier. And I always describe it a bit like having a broken bone. So I always thought I was just the wittiest person in the room at a party, telling jokes and bantering and la 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 la. And I did feel uncomfortable in the first few months after drinking, and I would stand there and think, shit, how am I going to get a conversation started? And I feel awkward. I don't have a drink in my hand because, I have no compulsion to sip quite as often as everyone else in the room because they're all looking for the alcohol hit. But then something happened, and I can't even tell you when it was, but something happened, and just like a switch, it clicked. And I began to feel less conscious of the fact that I wasn't drinking because nobody else cared. Let's be honest now. And suddenly I was having conversations as naturally and amazingly as I was before. And I think it's a bit like a broken bone when you had the plaster taken off and you might be limping because you broke your leg, which I did. And suddenly you stop limping and you don't remember the day that was, but now your leg feels fine and you can run a marathon or not. It really is a bit like that with socialising. So in some ways, at some point, you do need to get back into socialising, because the more you do it, the easier it will be. The more you'll realise that actually parties are about getting there a bit earlier, talking to people while they're still sober, and leaving when you've had enough, leaving when it's getting boring, not staying somewhere and drinking in order to stay, not drinking in order to stay at something you're not enjoying, not staying at something so you can stand still quietly in the room. Learning to socialise and be curious about other people at a social event is a wonderful gift. And the more you do it, the better it will be. And again, that feeling of discomfort at parties is only temporary. It's not forever. And it won't kill you. It's just discomfort, right? have some chocolate. You know, that's the way to do it. And also treat yourself with consent. So like I said, I find it really weird that often oh, well, in order to stay at this wedding party, I'm going to have to get drunk because Aunt Mabel's there. Well, you know what? Why is Aunt Mabel making you drink? If you're not enjoying Aunt Mabel's company, avoid her and leave when you're ready to go. Leave when you're tired. It's okay because nobody will really notice. Honestly, we think people notice far more than they really do. And quite frankly, when they've had quite a few drinks, they don't. And you can begin to revel in the joy of missing out. You know, there were probably loads of occasions that weren't as enjoyable as you thought they were going to be. And actually, if you organise your social life properly, you'll probably be doing something far more interesting. And so while you might not go to that party, you may feel the joy of missing out because you've done something far more nourishing for you instead. And it's okay. There are no, you know, these aren't rules in the world that you have to go to every party you're invited to. You don't have to spend time anywhere that you're not enjoying. You know, come on, guys. You can do this. This is about the whole of the rest of your life, and learning to get joy out of life that doesn't involve getting half pissed is really, really important. There is so much to enjoy out there. There is so much nourishing things, so many nourishing things you can do with your time. Let me see what else I've put on my notes here. Will you really miss out without alcohol? You know what? It's just going to be different. Your life's going to be different, and it'll be different because you've put the energy in to change it, and you've put the energy in to change it because you didn't like what was happening before. And that's really important to remember. So go back to that decision balance sheet that's in the file section of the Together group and is linked on the webinar page, and really do remind yourself why you're doing this. And yeah, there will be days that will be difficult. But you know what? Every day that's difficult, you have to say to yourself, if I say yes to a drink today, what am I saying no to? And you're saying no to a clear head tomorrow. You're saying no to getting up early and whizzing around an art gallery before the tourists arrive. You're saying no to a lovely breakfast with your children. You're saying no to a really nice afternoon with a friend that you've planned. You're saying no to a productive day tomorrow. You're saying no to a day without a hangover and a headache. You're saying no to your overall goal. You might even be saying no to day 265. So every time you think you might want to say yes to a drink, think about what it is that you're saying no to. And if you think at this point in time that a social event's going to ruin that, then avoid it for now. Try and discover some new ways to be social and have a joyful life without drinking, and you will also be making yourself more resilient for the longer term. Right, I'm just going to check if there's any questions. Wait a minute. And yes, and remembering important conversations. Oh, I've forgotten so many conversations. Afternoon tea obviously depends on the tea, Jack. Not missing out on training for half marathon. Yeah, not enough chocolate. Higher. So I'm going to leave it there. But I do really want to let you know that this, I never say to you good luck, because there is no luck in any of this. It's all about your commitment. It's all about your planning. It's all about being confident in your planning. And it's about remembering to really scotch those myths that we've been, brought up with since a really early age. And the more you do this, the more days you get under your belt, the more resilient you become. And if at any point you slip, the quicker you pick up the following day, the more resilient you become. Don't ever underestimate how many day ones I had, because I don't have enough fingers and toes in all of the membership to tell you how many day ones I had. So this is about building resilience, and the more you practice, the easier it will be. The more you will find things that you enjoy that give you far more joy in life than just sitting there chugging away at an alcoholic drink. And the more you ask people in here for their ideas on what they do, the more likely you are to succeed. But do not underestimate, it does take effort, but it is worth it. And I'm heading into 6 years soon, and I can't believe it. I was the biggest lush in London, but I get far more joy out of life now than I ever did before. I mean, yesterday I travelled an hour and a half to go to one of our socials. I had a really good read on the bus, missed the bus stop to get off, so therefore had a far longer walk in beautiful sunshine, sat and had a great laugh with other members, which really, really reinvigorated me and makes me feel very happy. Came up with loads of plans to take Claire out, you know, kayaking and doing bits with her, and we had a great time brainstorming those. And then I got into London and I went and just looked at one room in the British Museum. We went to look in the Korea room, spent an hour in there, just an hour, because you can do that, and came out and then went to dinner at a friend's house, and then came home and then got up this morning and went out to another art gallery and was back here by 11:30. I mean, that's a fun-filled, you know, few hours to begin with. Couldn't do that if I was hungover. Couldn't do that if I was half pissed. Didn't embarrass myself once. No, wait a minute. I actually might have embarrassed myself a few times, but on balance, less times than normal. So, guys, you can do this. I know you can. Ask me any questions on this afterwards as well, and I will speak to you soon.